I'm just thinking about that runaway train.
How does things like that happen?
What the heck was going on? You're on a train, and then there's another train, and it's going the other way, but no one's running it? What is this? You know what John Hilkovich called it in today's Tribune? The ghost train.
The ghost train.
And here's another guy who's been following this story. My friend and neighbor, Ben Bradley, ABC. What's up, man?
Good to be with you guys this morning. Thanks for calling.
All right, so you're the little investigative reporter. Was this sabotage or mechanical error?
He's not a little investigative.
Okay.
He's a big investigative reporter, and remember the guy who did the whole swinging, the convict swinging down the bed sheets and all that? Tell us about this train, though.
Well, there's only a couple options. Either it literally, miraculously moved on its own, hence the term ghost train, as one of the union guys said to me yesterday. Maybe Casper the Friendly Ghost was operating it, because the onboard video doesn't show anybody in the front cab at the controls. Now, it's worth mentioning that a train can be operated from any car that has the little motorman's booth in it. So, in theory, somebody could have been operating the train undetected from a different car in this train. But nobody saw anybody. As we reported last night, there was even a rail supervisor standing on the Forest Park platform, saw the train go by, was so concerned about it, because A, it was on the wrong track going in the wrong direction, and he didn't see anyone on board. He jumped down onto the tracks and chased after it while radioing, "There's a runaway train." So you could have had Casper the Friendly Ghost operating it. Or it could be, as the union suggested, it's possible somebody sabotaged it.
Why would
that
anyone?
would have to be somebody with a lot of knowledge.
Why would anyone sabotage a train? And once you start saying that word sabotage, that means I'm not going to be on a train for another 20 years. Okay? You know what I mean? Because you can just think, right? Sabotage. I mean, you could wreak havoc.
Right, but that's a real long shot, but obviously one they look at. But there's so many fail-safes in place that didn't work. They have to look at that. Starting with the fact, to energize a train, to get the power on, somebody has to put a key in and turn it. Now, we don't know for certain that train was powered on, but the union says they don't think it could have just rolled that far on its own. The brake would have to been turned off. And also, there are some automatic mechanisms that are supposed to stop the train if the signals detect there's a train entering a track it shouldn't be, etc. And those didn't work.
So on one end at the Harlem stop, you have the commuter train, and then you have this train that came out of nowhere. Do we know anything about this particular train, where it was before, or anything, details?
It was in the Skokie rail, or in the Forest Park rail yard, waiting to be transferred to the Skokie rail yard for repairs. But it wasn't in the process of being transferred. It was just parked and had been for days on end. We're told nothing had changed about its status. Now, worth pointing out, while some of the cars on that train were malfunctioning, which is why they were in for repairs, the head car was a fully functioning car, because that was going to act as kind of the tow for the other trains to up to the Skokie yard. But it was not in the process of being moved. It was parked as it had been for days, which goes to the whole notion of, well, could this train have just, rolled out on its own? Well, why hadn't it done so sooner? In theory, I guess somebody could have bumped it and not said anything, or, there's a whole host of things that could have happened.
Was it under power, or is it just rolling?
Well, that's what we don't know. The transit union thinks because there's a little hill that you have to get up to get from the Forest Park yard to Harlem, they think the train had to be energized.
I think that everybody should watch this movie called The Yards. You ever see it?
Mm-mm.
It's with James Caan and Joaquin Phoenix. It's about New York and the CTA, the New York rail system.
The subway.
All the politics, all the sabotage, all the wise guys, all the contracts. There's a lot going on there in that.
Does it have Al Sharpton laying on the tracks and shutting the whole New York subway system down?
And not even plugging himself in to fix his hair. Nothing.
But those were the days he had the hair. Yeah.
You guys will love this. Speaking of our government at work or not work, so your friend Senator Dick Durbin yesterday said that he threatened that the government shutdown was going to shut down the investigation into what happened because it's the Federal National Transportation Safety Board that's taking over. Well, I talked to the lead investigator yesterday. He said, no, they're deemed essential employees as long as they are on the scene of an accident. But when their on-scene investigation wraps up, they become non-essential. But the NTSB spokesperson who we deal with, I just gave him a ring this morning, and his voicemail says, sorry, due to a lapse in funding, I'm not available. So unclear when we'll get our next update.
Does Dick Durbin have that on his voicemail, too, since Boehner and Reed have...
No, they're getting paid. You know that.
Hey, listen, my friend, what did Forrest Claypool, Sir Forrest of Claypool, as we like to call him, I like the fellow, he's interesting. He runs the CTA. What's he said about this?
Well, embarrassingly enough to him, he was downtown speaking to a big transit conference that was in town when this happened. So he had to scurry out to the near west suburbs. You know, before when the NTSB comes in, they take over everything,
right?
And therefore, then the CCA can't release any more information on its own. All information has to come from the NTSB. So he essentially stood behind the NTSB guy yesterday and wouldn't answer questions. I can tell you, before the NTSB took jurisdiction, they weren't able to explain it much more than we are today, 24 hours later.
That is just too odd.
There were a couple of signals that should have stopped the train.
Right.
There were a couple of safety mechanisms that should have. Oh, and by the way, trains not only have brakes, but parking brakes, and they shouldn't roll away on their own.
I just gotta...
Ben, you gotta get to the bottom of this.
Ben,
Come on.
Will you quit hanging out at the Hinsdale Lions Township soccer game where I saw you and start working a little bit?
And do me a favor, stop handing out those labels that say essential employee and non-essential employee.
Hey, you don't think somebody who speaks to the media is essential? I can't believe they're devaluing our profession.
We are essential. You know, I can't live without us. You know?
Yeah, I certainly can. I don't know what I would do.
Who's going to feed us the party line, John, without a spokesperson?
That's right. I need at least one thing we know. It's not Frank Cruzy, who used to run the CTA. Frank Cruzy with his little yellow jacket, remember?
I miss that.
He'd put his little action figure jacket on, and he was a man who, I used to say, would sell 2 dead rats as earmuffs to blind people. Okay,
my favorite thing was he'd show up in that neon yellow parka when it was 80 degrees outside at the scene of a crash, just to make it look like he had just been under the train working on it. Isn't Cruzy out like goat farming?
I think he's goat farming, taking 3 pensions, and calling Rich Daly twice a day from China.
Ben, get to the bottom of this for us, Ben.
There's a metaphor in there.
Ben, do some work for gosh sakes. Thanks, man.
I will. I'm on furlough. I'm not working today.
89.